Good morning, everyone. Welcome to learning about your flexible spending accounts, your FSAs, and your commuter accounts. My name is Linda Fries, and I'm the benefits manager for PEBB. Sarah, next slide. I have a bunch of people here from PEBB to help answer questions, so a little bit of webinar tips. You can type your questions anytime during the live webinar. The questions will be answered. It says at the end of the presentation, but sometimes we pause and we will bring some questions in that are being asked that are pretty popular. But we do have a team here. We've got Rhonda and Tammy and April here that are answering questions as you ask them. So just don't be afraid to do that. You will receive a follow-up email when the recording is available. So if you have to get out of the webinar early for some reason, you'll be sent an email with the recording when that's available. Captions will be included in the recording, and you can find any additional benefit information at pebbinfo.com. If something should happen during the webinar, like you lose visuals or you lose sound, log out and come back in again. Usually that helps. All right, Sarah, next slide. Confirmation letters and corrections. Next week, we will have letters going out in the mail for your health care and your dependent care FSAs and your parking and transportation accounts. We've been doing this series of letters for years now. So if you enrolled in an FSA or a commuter account effective January 1st, you will get at least one letter. If you enrolled in more than one FSA, or if you're in an FSA or a commuter account, you might get a couple of letters. The healthcare FSA letters are going to be on a blue sheet of paper. Dependent care will be on pink. The parking account will be on orange, and the transportation account on green. So these 4 letters, make sure you haven't gotten them yet, but you will get them next week. So be on the lookout. This will come to you via mail into your mailbox at home. So watch for these. We will also be sending out a few emails about this also. So watch, and regardless of whether you have fixed your account or not, you know, maybe you've updated it with a new amount or you've switched it, we will still be sending out letters and emails. So, you know, as long as you have a confirmation, if you've made an update to your account and you've got a confirmation back from somebody on the PEBB team that your account's been updated, if you've made changes, then you're good, even if you get another email from us. Okay, next slide. The ASI Flex confirmation letters, what's the purpose of these letters? Well, number one, we do them on different colors of paper, but we do these letters because these are IRS regulated accounts. They're not governed by PEBB rules, they're governed by IRS rules. And so we want to make sure that you have enrolled in the correct account. And once January 1st hits, you're kind of locked into the account that you've selected. So we're sending you these letters, especially for the health care and the dependent care, to say, is this really the account that you meant to enroll in? We want to, in these letters, explain to you what this account is used to cover. Like healthcare, FSA is used for healthcare expenses for you and your family. The dependent care account is used for dependent care, like daycare costs, not healthcare costs for your dependents that are age 13 or younger. We're also confirming your monthly contribution. You know, did you mean to put in $100 a month or $300 a month. Confirm the number of months you plan to contribute. That's only for university employees. Explain rules for making corrections and provide correction timelines and the deadline and the penalty if you don't take action if you need to. Okay, next slide. So the healthcare FSA, again, it's going to be on blue paper. If you notice there, it's going to have your contribution per month in there. So pay attention to how much you're putting in per month. It's going to let you know that this is used for medical, dental, and vision expenses for you and your eligible dependents, which would be your spouse and your children. Okay, and your eligible children, not your children over age 26. Dependent care FSA, it's going to also show you how much you're putting in per month. And dependent care FSA is for daycare expenses for your children age 13 and under, or under the age of 13, sorry about that. The dependent care FSA is not for medical, dental, or vision expenses. So a lot of people get dependent care FSA mixed up with the healthcare FSA. A lot of people think that the healthcare FSA is just healthcare costs for themselves, and the dependent care FSA is for healthcare costs for their dependents. That is not accurate. Healthcare FSA is healthcare, medical, dental, and vision for you and your eligible dependents. Dependent care FSA is daycare expenses for your kids under the age of 13. It is not for medical, dental, or vision. So I just want to put that out there. You should not have a dependent care FSA if you don't have any kids. Or if your kids are over the age of 13, you should not have enrolled in the dependent care FSA. All right, next slide. Flexible spending accounts, act now to correct. So at this point right now, it's November 14th. You can make changes to your healthcare or your dependent care FSA effective January 1st. So if you didn't put in enough money, if you put in too much money, maybe you enrolled in the dependent care FSA and you're like, oh, I don't have any kids. I need to change that over to the healthcare FSA. Now is your time to make that correction. You can make changes to your FSA between now and Friday, December 13th. So next month, December 13th is the deadline. If you don't make changes during the correction period, your FSA contributions will continue through December 2025. After the correction period, you can only make changes to your FSA with a qualified status change. So it's very important that you review these accounts. Are you in the right account? Are you putting the correct amount of money in? Because once January 1st hits, these accounts are locked and you can't change them without a qualified status change. Okay, next slide, Sarah. The flexible spending account correction form is out on our website, so you can go to www.pebinfo.com and you can look under the forms link. On that main page, there's a little link called forms, and you can just type in FSA open enrollment correction form. It's form number 5516, and you can fill that out and get that emailed to us, and we will take care of any issues that you're having. All right, so the commuter accounts, we have parking and transportation. These are different from healthcare and dependent care. Healthcare and dependent care are flexible spending accounts. Parking and transportation are considered commuter accounts, and they kind of have a different set of guidelines. But you also will be receiving letters if you enrolled in parking or transportation. Parking is going to be on the golden or yellow paper. It will also show you how much you're contributing per month and what this account is for. Okay, Sarah, next slide. Transportation will be on green paper, and it also will show you how much you're contributing per month and what you can use transportation for. Okay, next slide. You can make corrections to your commuter accounts. You can actually make these corrections at any time during the year. You can increase your parking or your transportation account at any time during the year. So you can cancel this, you can enroll in it, change your contribution amount at any time. But here's something that you need to remember about parking and transportation. If you cancel your parking or transportation account, the clock starts to tick. You have 6 months from the time that you cancel to use up all of the funds that are in your account. And you have to have bills for the time that you had that money in the account. So if you have an account and you're like, I'm not parking right now, but I'm going to, because I'm taking a leave of absence or something like that, you might want to just lower the amount down to $25 a month to keep that account active, so that that 6-month clock doesn't start to tick. Because if the 6 months goes by and you've got $500 sitting in that account, you will completely lose that $500 that's in that account. All right, next slide. This shows you the form. It's form 5515, where you can make changes to your commuter account for 2025 if you desire to do so. All right. We're going to pause for a minute. Tammy, do we have any questions coming in right now?
Yeah, we've gotten quite a few questions, Linda, in regards to dependent care FSA. Members asking if they can do like elderly parents or, other dependents, like parent, spouse, that are not just children.
And I believe ASI has some guidelines that on their website, correct?
That is correct. For what they say is, if a dependent is unable to care for himself or herself, who spends at least 8 hours a day in your home, whom you can claim as an exemption or could claim it as exemption, except the person has a gross income exceeding a certain exemption amount. Your spouse is physically or mentally unable to care for him or herself, again, spending at least 8 hours a day. So there are certain requirements in regards to physical and mental incapacitation, persons with disabilities, who are not able to feed or dress themselves. So there are certain things that it could also be used for other than childcare. I just recommend you work directly with ASI on what they need to meet the eligibility, if you're meeting the eligibility to qualify for that for a person that you're looking at caring for, because there are stricter criteria for that to meet.
Correct. Yeah, we don't want to see you contribute all year long and then come to find out that you can't use it. So really get some guidance through ASI Flex when it comes to dependents that are over the age of 13. Anything else, Tammy?
Right now, that was the biggest one. We have more people wanting more clarification on parking accounts.
And we have several more slides. We'll drill down deeper and we'll talk more about parking and transportation in some slides to come. So if you guys just hold on, we'll hopefully answer your questions. All right, so let's look at ASI Flex corrections and let's talk about what you guys can do and what happens after January 1st. If you want to make any changes to your dependent care or healthcare FSA, you need to do so by Friday, December the 15th. Updates will be effective January 1st, 2025. If you did not do open enrollment during the month of October, then you cannot sign up for an FSA during the correction period. So please understand that in order to have a flexible spending account effective January 1st, you had to participate in open enrollment during the month of October. So if you did not enter our system and you did not do open enrollment during the month of October, you are not eligible for a flexible spending account effective January 1st, even though we're in a correction period. Make sure that you understand your choices, amounts, and any penalties if you fail to make a change before January 1st, 2025. I've heard of a lot of people that are, they've got a few doctor's appointments right now, or they're taking their kids to the dentist to see if they're going to need braces, sometime during 2025. So they're kind of getting all their ducks in a row to see what kind of expenditures they're going to have during 2025. And so, use the next couple of weeks to figure out if you have already contributed, during open enrollment, made the election to contribute just enough money to your FSA, or maybe you did too much or not enough. All right, next slide. As of January 1st, 2025, all ASI Flex issues will then have to come to PEB as an appeal. So right now it's free reign. You've got the correction form. You can make adjustments. After January 1st, it's an appeal form and it's an appeal process, and things could possibly get approved, maybe. Not likely though with a lot of FSA issues. More likely things would get denied. So it's very important to take action now. No health care or dependent care FSA cancellations or changes after January 1st unless you have a qualified status change. A qualified status change could be things like a birth or a marriage or a divorce, things like that are your qualified status changes. And if you have a qualified status change, we need to know about that within 30 days of that change in order for you to qualify to make a change. No retroactive FSA corrections or enrollments. So you might lose money if you kind of put this, the correction period on the back burner and then you miss it, then you might be bound to the decision that you made during open enrollment. And that's a possibility that you could lose money during 2025. No mid-year enrollments or prospective increases or decreases without a qualified status change. In years past, the new plan year has started and somebody finds out, mid-January that they're pregnant. And so, oh, I'm going to have a lot of expenses because I'm pregnant now. I'm going to use that to increase my healthcare FSA. Getting pregnant is not a qualified status change to increase your healthcare FSA. So again, and we'll talk a little bit in the next couple of slides about planning conservatively, but make sure you have what is appropriate for your family in these accounts. PEB will adjust the number of months prospectively if you enroll mid-year with a qualified status change. And with our university members, because some of them only receive so many paychecks per month, we will always correct those because that is something that we do, because sometimes people don't always put their correct number of pays in the system during open enrollment, and we do get a report from the universities that help us correct that. All right, next slide. And this is about the university members only. When you enrolled online, you selected what you thought were the months without any contribution. But Tammy, who just spoke a little while ago, who handles all of our FSAs, she works with the universities to make these corrections. And this is a huge report that she works every year. So we want to thank her for doing that. But these are things that we will go ahead and correct for university members. All right, next slide. So we're going to move on. We'll go ahead and go on. So what is an FSA? And a lot of people ask this during open enrollment. These are special accounts. They're spending accounts regulated by the IRS. It's an annual account. It's pre-tax money for eligible expenses. And so that's why a lot of people want to contribute to a flexible spending account, because it's money that you use to pay for daycare expenses or for healthcare costs, but it's pre-tax, so it comes out of your paycheck pre-tax. According to IRS regulations, you have to enroll in this annually. That's why it was required that you do open enrollment during the month of October. It requires an annual enrollment, and it is pre-tax contributions through your monthly payroll deductions. It helps you pay for 2025 eligible expenses. It is a use it or lose it. If you do not use all of the money in your healthcare FSA that you said that you wanted to contribute for 2025, then you will lose that money. If you do not use all of the dependent care money that you've contributed for 2025, you will lose that money. And these are not PEBB rules. These are IRS rules. And that's why it's very important that you plan conservatively for these accounts. And that's why we give you this period of time right now to really review what you're looking at. All right, next slide. So you enroll annually. The elections last unless you have a qualified status change. So again, we talked about a qualified status change, a marriage, a birth, a divorce, a death. These are things that would allow you to do certain things to the flexible spending accounts. You don't have to be enrolled in PEBB medical, dental, or vision insurance to enroll in an FSA. You can access full healthcare funds anytime during the year, and that's what makes the healthcare FSA kind of nice. If you decided, I'm going to put $100 a month back into the healthcare FSA starting January 1st. So that's, I want to contribute $1,200 for the whole year, $100 times 12. That $1,200 is available to you to use during the month of January. So maybe you have a surgery during the month of January and you have to pay your $250 deductible and then your co-insurance, and you get the bill from the doctor's office and it's $975. And you've decided to put, 100 times 12, $1,200 into your healthcare FSA. You can submit that claim to ASI Flex for the $975 during the month of January. And if everything is eligible and approved with ASI Flex, they will reimburse you the $975, even though you've only up until this point contributed $100 into your FSA. So that's a kind of a nice thing with the healthcare FSA. But remember that the unused funds are forfeited if they're not used within 2025. Expenses can be for a spouse and eligible dependent children, not for domestic partners, okay? And this again is an IRS guideline that your healthcare FSA cannot be for domestic partners. We do have a grace period that extends until March 15th of every year. So if you contribute from January through December, and you make a contribution every month, you have until March 15th of 2026 to use those funds. If you didn't use them all up during 2025, you've got 2.5 months, March 15th, to continue to kind of absorb that 2025 healthcare FSA. So that makes it a little bit nice. I did a healthcare FSA for 2024. I've already used up all of my contributions. So I already used up the full amount of my healthcare FSA, and I used that up in September. And so, but I still had to contribute and make my contributions for October, November, December. I won't go into that grace period because I've used my FSA all up. But if I hadn't, then maybe deductibles or something like that for January, February, and into early March, you could use that FSA for that. But don't plan that way. Plan for just the plan year. I hope that that makes sense. Tammy, do we have any other questions coming in?
Yeah, we've got a lot of questions on like when the accounts are funded. A lot of questions on what happens to the funds if it does get forfeited. Those are coming in pretty steady right now.
So the accounts usually get funded after payroll runs. And sometimes it takes a week or two for things to fund correctly. But normally things are funded within usually the first week after payroll, right, Tammy?
Yes, correct. Usually within, no later than 5 days for the dependent care FSA. The funds will show posted with ASI and the files are uploaded depending on how the first falls. For the healthcare FSA, if you enroll during open enrollment, or if you did enroll and make a correction, you have full access of your full contribution amount. So if you're requesting $1,000 for the plan year, on January 1, you have full access to that $1,000. So if you use your full $1,000 in January, you're still obligated to make your monthly contributions January through December. There's also questions, Linda, on if they leave employment. So if you do leave your employment, so if you are contributing to your FSA starting January 1, and let's say you work through April 30th. So if you work through April 30th and you work full-time hours, your core benefits, medical, dental, vision, go through May, but the FSA terms at the end of April. So you have the 4 months of contributions. You can only submit claims for January, February, March, April for the amounts that you contributed. So you would have, let's say, $400 in there. If you don't have enough reimbursable expenses, you could forfeit the money, or if you've submitted claims and you're in excess of that, then you've already used up the money that you've contributed up to that point.
So very good points. I'm looking at some of the questions. Boy, we've got a lot of questions coming in. Somebody's asking, Monica, you're asking for clarification. Medical expenses occurred in January 2025 can be paid with the 2024 account. Monica, yes, they can if you contributed through December 31st of 2024. If you stopped your contribution maybe with a qualified status change on September 30th, then the answer to that question is no. You don't get the grace period unless you contributed through December 31st. So I hope that that answers that question. Another person saying, can I pay for the medical expense on my credit card and then submit a claim to ASI Flex for the reimbursement? You sure can. You're just going to have to submit like a screenshot, you know, a photograph of your medical bill. You know, if you've already paid for it with your credit card, that's fine. I had to go in for some dental work and I paid for it with my credit card, but I took my bill from my endodontist and submitted that to ASI Flex, so they did use that. So I hope that that answers your question. All right, let's move on to the next slide, Sarah. So flexible spending accounts, how does it work? So we've got kind of 4 points here. Estimate your expenses for the upcoming plan year. Look at like, okay, this current year, how much do I spend every month on prescriptions? Do I hit my medical deductible every year? Do we have to have certain medical tests done every year? So estimate your expenses, but please be conservative with your expenses because again, these are use it or lose it funds. That's how you decide, am I contributing the right amount every month to my FSA? Make pre-tax contributions via your paycheck throughout the year. Then you have to incur eligible expenses. Then you submit claims to ASI Flex by the deadline, and then you get reimbursed. And I'm going to tell you, I know a lot of people wait till the end of the year. They wait till that March 31st deadline. Please don't do that. I submitted my claims all throughout the year. I downloaded the ASI app on my phone. I would take my phone and take a picture of my medical bill. I would just go through the app and upload that. And within about 10 days, I had the check in my mailbox. Or I think you can do direct deposit if you want to. It was so easy to just have the app on my phone and to just do it that way. And you can get on the app yourself and you can kind of keep track of your balance. You can keep track of your contributions. You know, how much money do I have left in my FSA? It's so easy to use. Very, very easy. Okay, next slide. PEBB offers 2 types of FSAs. So again, we've talked about these with the letters. We have the healthcare FSA. That's what covers your medical, dental, and vision expenses. It includes your deductibles, your copays, your office visits, your tests, your supplies, your prescriptions. You can look at all the eligible expenses, things that it covers, things that it doesn't cover. You can go to the IRS website. You can also go to the ASI Flex website, and it really has a large list of things that are covered. Dependent care FSA, it covers your eligible dependent, your dependent care expenses. This is like child care, daycare, after school care, preschool expenses for children up to age 13. And as Tammy said earlier, it will cover for some disabled dependents, but really check that out with ASI Flex before you just sink a lot of money into the dependent care FSA. Make sure that things are approved, and you can find a full list of eligible expenses on the IRS website or also on the ASI Flex website. All right, next slide. So healthcare FSA, the annual maximum is $3,200 per subscriber. So $3,200. Now, I know the IRS just announced a new annual maximum for 2025, but because our open enrollment happens in October, we are always a year behind on the annual maximum. So this, for 2025, it's going to be $3,200 per subscriber. So again, to avoid losing it, plan for expenses that are predictable and reoccurring. Look at your past year. Was it a typical year? Was it not typical because maybe you had this surgery that you wouldn't normally have every year? Be conservative because elections are final once enrolled. And again, you can look at the ASI Flex store. But also remember, if you contribute through December 31st of a plan year, you will have that 2.5-month grace period. So I'm going through this just like you guys are. I'm like, do I need to increase my FSA? Because we might have to have this thing happen during 2025, but I don't want to over contribute. So you want to really be conservative with your healthcare FSA. Okay, next slide. Some, not all, but some eligible expenses, prescriptions, and office visit copays, your deductibles, your x-rays, your labs, a hospital visit, mileage to and from healthcare providers, some over-the-counter things, Band-Aids, sunscreens, braces, first aid supplies, pill holders, blood pressure monitors, thermometers, diabetic supplies, vision exams, eyeglasses, prescription sunglasses, contact lenses and solution, reading glasses, LASIK surgery, dental exams, x-rays, filling, orthodontia, crowns and bridges, dentures and adhesives, guards, implants, hearing exams, hearing aids, hearing aid batteries. So these are just some, this is not the full list, but these are some things that flow and are reimbursable through your healthcare FSA. All right, next slide. Some things that are not eligible, services not provided yet. So pre-treatment estimates. You would not get reimbursed for something that hasn't been done yet. So if you take your child in and they're like, they're going to have to get their wisdom teeth out, here's the pre-treatment estimate. If you try to turn that into ASI Flex, they're not going to take it. They're not going to take it until the wisdom teeth have been removed and you have your bill. Cosmetic treatments or medications, illegal operations, expenses that are paid by your insurance you can't get reimbursed for, diapers, maternity clothes, insurance premiums, dancing and swimming lessons, things like that, holistic treatments, natural remedies, vitamins, and warranties. So again, you can get a full list through ASI Flex. All right, next slide. Dependent care FSA. So this is a little bit different. On your healthcare FSA, it was $3,200 per subscriber. Dependent care FSA is $5,000 per family, So not per subscriber, it is per family. So you have a mother and a father, and they have a child. Mom can have $2,500 deducted, and dad can have $2,500 deducted because that equals $5,000. But mom can't have $5,000 deducted, and dad can't have $5,000 deducted because now you're $5,000 over. And it's not just within the PEBB enrollments, it's if dad works for a different company and mom works here and has her benefits under PEB. You better make sure that you're coordinating together, that the two of you are not going over $5,000 per the family. So very, very important. If you are divorced, it is the custodial parent that should have the dependent care FSA, not the non-custodial parent. So another thing that you need to be aware of there. Again, the dependent care FSA is a use it or lose it. So be very cautious about how much you're putting into a dependent care FSA. And these funds do not roll over to the next plan year. All right, next slide. So things that are eligible expenses for a dependent care FSA: babysitting while you work, preschool or nursery school for young children, before or after school care, day camps. It's for children under age 13, for children age 13 plus or adult if not capable of self-care. And so that's kind of the big question mark area. So if you have a dependent age 13 plus, make sure you're talking with ASI Flex about, does this person really qualify me to invest, contribute into a dependent care FSA? Okay, next slide. Some things that are ineligible for dependent care FSAs. Again, services not yet provided. Educational or tuition expenses. So you want to put your child in a private school and there's a tuition for it, that would be an ineligible expense. Kindergarten or higher education costs, overnight camp expenses, services during vacation, holidays, or leave of absence. So let me just pause there. If you leave employment because of a medical leave and you're off work for 2 or 3 months, your dependent care FSA should stop. So you need to make sure that payroll is stopping your dependent care FSA for the, let's say you're taking 2 months off. They're stopping your dependent care FSA for the 2 months that you're taking off. And you cannot submit claims for the months that you did not make contributions. The same thing with the healthcare FSA. If you stop any of these FSAs because you're taking a leave of absence, you cannot submit claims for the months that you are not making contributions. But according to IRS guidelines, if you take a leave of absence, your dependent care FSA must stop because you are at home and you should be able to care for your child. You could continue your healthcare FSA, and that's an arrangement that you have to work out with your payroll, whether you prepay it before you leave, or you make the payments as you're gone, or you make it up when you come back. But the only way to submit claims for a healthcare FSA is you have to make a contribution during that month. So going back to the dependent care, only custodial parents' expenses are eligible in divorce situations. So if you are divorced and you have a child, it is the custodial parent that should be doing the dependent care FSA, not the non-custodial parent. And expenses exceeding $5,000 per family per calendar year are ineligible on the dependent care FSA. All right, next slide. Dependent care FSAs, here's some helpful tips and things that we have seen over the years. Start a dependent care FSA when you're ready to begin child care, not at birth or during open enrollment. So we have a lot of people that maybe went through open enrollment last month, and they're expecting a newborn in their home maybe in January. So they went ahead during open enrollment. They said, I'm going to sign up for the dependent care FSA because I know that we're going to have to put the baby into daycare sometime during 2025. What I'm telling you is think again. Maybe go in and cancel that dependent care FSA right now and wait until you're ready to begin daycare. So not at birth, not during open enrollment, because when you're ready to begin daycare, that would be a qualified status change to add a dependent care FSA. A lot of people have a newborn baby with the great intentions of going back to work after baby's born, and putting the baby in daycare, but baby's born and one of the parents decides to now be a stay-at-home parent, or baby is born and baby has medical issues and baby's not able to be put into daycare. But now mom and dad still have all this money going into a dependent care FSA and they don't have baby going into daycare. So wait until you're ready to put child into daycare to start the dependent care FSA. You are to notify PEBB within 30 days if your child care situation changes in 2025. If your dependent care has shut down, or you've decided, gosh, let's just say that it's May and you've decided I'm pulling my child out of daycare the end of May. And then you send PEBB a form in August to say, oh, I pulled my child out of daycare the end of May. I know that it's 2 months later, but I want to stop my dependent care FSA. We will not stop the dependent care FSA. You need to notify us within 30 days of an event happening. And again, this is IRS guidelines. Just another little warning, submit your claims promptly to avoid losing funds. And dependent care FSAs cannot be used for health care expenses for your dependents. Just another little warning about that. And really, I can't talk enough about submitting your claims promptly. Back when, I'm going to tell you all a story, back when COVID was happening, the IRS allowed families to put $10,000 a year into the dependent care FSA. And we had a family that failed to submit any claims for the year, and they contributed $10,000 into the dependent care FSA, and they lost $10,000. So submit your claims promptly. Please do not wait to the last minute to submit claims. Submit your claims promptly. And dependent care cannot be used for a health care expense. All right, next slide. Okay, important dates. Claims must be incurred between January 1st and March 15th. If you contributed through December 31st, the claims deadline with ASI Flex is always March 31st. It is always March 31st. If you submit on April 1st, it will be denied. So you have until March 31st. Please, please, please do not wait until March 31st to submit claims. Get your claims submitted. I like to submit my claims as I incur them because then I'm getting readily reimbursed, and that makes me happy. But submit your claims early to avoid missing any deadlines. All right, next slide. Commuter benefits. Okay, before we move on to commuter benefits, Tammy, any questions coming in?
Yeah, we've got a lot of questions in regards to submitting claims and expenses. What happens if they submit claims and they're denied due to they're not eligible? So with claims, if you submit in a claim or you use your debit card and you swipe it, you will be required to also submit an itemized detailed receipt to ASI. ASI is going to review that itemized receipt to make sure that those claims you submitted are eligible reimbursable expenses based off, the IRS guidelines. So if you do submit your debit card and you have claims that are no longer eligible, then you would be responsible for paying back ASI for that money that was paid to that doctor for non-eligible expenses.
All right. And just because I will tell you all this, I submitted some things to ASI Flex, and it's not uncommon for them to come back and say, we need some more information. So you have to go get more information and submit that. And some things they were like, yeah, we'll pay for this line item, but we're not going to pay for this one. All right. But it's not uncommon for them to say, we need more documentation before we're going to pay this claim. So be prepared for that. They did that on a couple of things for me, but everything else was paid without any questions. So, they're just following their rules to keep things very much regulated by the IRS to make sure that we can offer this benefit to our employees. All right, let's move on to commuter benefit accounts. How do they work? This is our parking and transportation accounts. Again, they are IRS regulated. You can enroll, change, and cancel these accounts at any time. Your election is month to month. You make pre-tax contributions through payroll deductions. You pay for current month commuting expenses. You submit claims for parking or transit expenses incurred during your coverage period. Reimbursements are capped at the IRS monthly limit, and unused funds are also forfeited after 6 months. Okay, next slide. So we have two types. We have parking and transit or transportation. Parking reimbursement account pays for parking at your place of employment or parking at a location from which you commute to work. Some people might park at a lot and then take a bus in to get to their place of work. One thing that people really get confused about with parking, you don't qualify for the parking reimbursement account if you park at a state-owned lot or garage and you are already paying for parking expenses through your payroll deductions. So, when I worked in the office downtown Salem, we had the green lot and the red lot around us. If somebody was parking in the green lot or the red lot, they were already paying the state to park there, and the state was already taking that out pre-tax. These people would also not contribute to an ASI Flex parking account. But we had a lot of people that rented a spot over at the Lee Apartments that was not affiliated with the state at all. And they were paying the Lee Apartments for their parking. Those people would qualify if they wanted to contribute to a parking account. So state-owned lots, the parking costs are already being deducted pre-tax from your paycheck from the state. You would not qualify to again go into an ASI Flex parking account. If you're parking at a non-state-owned lot, you can set aside a chosen amount into a pre-tax parking so that you can reimburse when you pay your bill for your parking. All right, next slide. The transit van pool reimbursement account, it's money that you set aside pre-tax for commuting expenses via a transit reimbursement account. It's for bus, rail, ferry, van pool expenses that you incur commuting to and from work. Bicycles are not included. Okay, next slide. The maximum amount for the parking account is $315 per month. It is for non-state-owned parking lots, parking meters at or near your place of employment, a parking garage at or near your place of employment, parking at a place from which you commute via mass transit to get into work. All right, next slide. The transit, train, bus, subway, ferry, streetcar, van pool, which is also subject to IRS guidelines. These types of things can feed into your transportation account if you do contribute to a transportation account. Okay, next slide. Ineligible expenses. So non-work related parking or transit costs, parking at state-owned lots where they're already being deducted out of your paycheck, bicycle or repairs to your bicycle, rain gear, headlamps to ride your bicycle, those types of things are not reimbursable. Rideshare, Uber, Lyft, those things are not reimbursable. Vehicle repairs, gas, all that type of things, oil changes, those things are not reimbursable. Those are ineligible expenses. Okay, next slide. They do require claims, so you're going to have to certify that the expenses are eligible and not reimbursed some other way. You may have to provide third-party documentation or explain if that's not available, like why you had to pay a street meter for parking. You may have to document that out on a form for ASI Flex. And then you would submit the claim to ASI Flex for reimbursement. All right, next slide. Again, ASI must receive your claims by March 31st. So if you contributed to a transportation or parking account for this year, 2024, in order to get reimbursed for any 2024 parking or transportation costs to you, you have to submit by March 31st of 2025. If you started this for 2025, then in order to get reimbursed for any parking or transportation costs for plan year 2025, you would have to submit all of your claims no later than March 31st of 2026. Inactive accounts. Inactive accounts with no activity for 180 days, which is equivalent to 6 months, are terminated and the balances are forfeited. So inactive accounts mean you haven't made a contribution to that account. You've basically terminated that account and you haven't done anything for 6 months, then those balances are forfeited to the state. All right, next slide. ASI Flex customer service. Here's all their information. You can also just Google ASI Flex and it will take you to their website. And you can just, I mean, it's one of the top hits that come up. You can go to www.pebinfo.com and we have links to all of our carriers and vendors on our website, but this is their information. They have very good customer service hours. and they're very quick to get back with you. All right, next slide. Our member services, we are Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. Our email is here, our fax number, where you go to enroll is on here, our forms. It's just so easy to go to www.pebinfo.com, and all of our information is right there on the website for you. All right, I know that we are at 11 o'clock right now. Tammy, are there any other questions that you think are worthwhile for us to stop and answer right now?
They're all pretty much, stuff that you've covered at a certain point, or if members want, a lot of the questions are like on medical expenses, what is claimable, and a lot of those questions really need to go to ASI, Linda, or they can send us an email, but I think you've hit on most of what has been asked.
Yeah, I mean, if you're really wondering about something very personal to you, is this covered or not, send us an email or go directly to ASI Flex to see if something is covered. We don't want to give you bad information and say, yeah, that sounds like it's going to be covered. Really go directly to ASI Flex and see if something's going to be covered, because they're really going to have all the IRS guidelines there. We will send you an email once the recording is available, and you'll be able to see this recording again. And then I'm pretty sure that Sarah and Forrest also posted out on our website at the www.pebinfo.com. So the confirmation letters will, I think the confirmation letters should have a link to ASI Flex. But ASI Flex, once they start receiving your contributions, they will be sending you emails letting you know how to set up an account. So please watch your junk mail, because sometimes these will go into your junk mail. I get tons of stuff in my junk mail, but I go through it before I just clean it all out. But ASI Flex will send you statements. They'll let you know what your account balance is, how to set up your account with them. Again, downloading the app is so easy, and having it on your phone and just taking a picture and submitting. I mean, it takes minutes, and it's just so easy to do. Just looking to see if there's anything else here. So again, dependent care and healthcare FSAs are all use it or lose it. So plan what you're going to contribute for 2025 very conservatively, because if you don't spend it, you will lose it. Make sure that you understand the difference between healthcare FSA and dependent care FSA. Healthcare is for medical, dental, vision. Dependent care is for daycare expenses. Totally different types of accounts. So make sure you understand those differences. Other than that, I think that we still have a lot of questions coming in, so I'm going to ask you to send those to our PEB benefit inbox. And thank you for joining us today. And watch out for your letters and your emails coming in the next couple of weeks. Thank you all.